fans, I'm Jack Benner, and I'm here to count down my top 10 favorite films of 2015. And still continuing my top 10 best of list for 2010 through 2016. And for 2015, it was a pretty good year for movies. A lot of great and memorable movies that came out that year. Originally, I was thinking of doing a top 15 list, so maybe I could try to do a 15, but looking to the list, I just thought maybe a top 10 would be fine. Just to get this out of the way, like I always do with my list, this is all entirely my opinion. If there is a movie on here you disagree with, or a placement, that is fine. Respect your opinion. And also, if there is a movie on here that you've never seen and sounds interesting to you, please check it out. Regardless of their placement, all these movies are worth checking out. Alright, let's get started with the list. I have 9 honorable mentions in alphabetical order because that's how I like to arrange my honorable mentions. Starting with Ant-Man, really fun MCU movie. The Gift, an impressive directorial debut from Joel Edgerton, and that ending, oh my god. The Hateful Eight, not one of my favorite Tarantino movies, but still an intense mystery film with an amazing cast and screenplay. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, another great Mission Impossible movie after Ghost Protocol. The Peanuts movie, easily Blue Sky Studios' best film. Growing up with these characters, I'm really happy that this movie succeeded. Room, a great drama from A24 with the best performance of Brie Larson's career. Happy she won Best Actress, and Jacob Tremblay giving one of the best child performances I've ever seen. The Best Picture winner, Spotlight. Even though this and Room are movies I can only watch once and never again, I still thought this was a very interesting journalism drama with an amazing cast and a great screenplay. Spy, a hilarious comedy with Melissa McCarthy. And the final honorable mention, Straight Outta Compton, one of the best music biopics I've seen since Walk the Line. And with those out of the way, let's get into the top 10 list. Coming in at number 10 is a director who is continuing to impress me. That is Sicario. Sicario was an intense, gruesome, gritty, and realistic film. This film really shows how fantastic of a director Denis Villeneuve is after Prisoners and Enemy. Making an intense movie, he definitely knows how to use tension very well, especially in a great highway scene, and also a particular scene at the end with Benicio del Toro's character. And along with Roger Deakins, cinematography is just amazing. And 2 performances that just stole the show for me. Lead, played by Emily Blunt, who is just terrific in this movie. The vulnerability she shows in this movie, and this shows how talented of an actress Emily Blunt is. And honestly, I think this might be my favorite performance Emily Blunt has given, and I wish she was nominated for Best Actress for this film. But the standout of this movie is definitely Benicio del Toro. He was definitely the most interesting character to watch in this movie. I loved every scene he was in, and I wish he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And if you love a good crime thriller, definitely check out Sicario. Denis Villeneuve, just loving you as a director right now. I can't wait for Dune next year. Coming in at number 9 is an actor-director collaboration that I love seeing, and this is one of my favorites that they've done, and that is Bridge of Spies. I love whenever Tom Hanks gets to collaborate with Steven Spielberg at the directing chair. Saving Private Ryan in particular is my favorite, along with Catch Me If You Can. And with Bridge of Spies, I'd say this is my 3rd favorite that they've done. This was a very well-written Cold War drama that had me invested throughout and not bored. Steven Spielberg at the top of his game, making a well-shot movie and telling an interesting story at the same time. Tom Hanks, as always, is great in the lead. And Mark Rylance, who plays the Soviet spy in the film, he is fantastic in this movie. And Mark Rylance won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in this movie, and I was satisfied he won, but who was my pick for Best Supporting Actor that year, we'll get on to later. And after this movie, I've been loving him, like in Dunkirk, and so far my favorite film of the year, The Trial of the Chicago 7. If you're interested in a really good Cold War drama, definitely check out Bridge of Spies. At number 8 is a movie that came out earlier in 2015 that was so much freaking fun. Kingsman: The Secret Service. Kingsman was one of the most entertaining films of 2015, and I can't imagine anyone watching this movie without a smile on their face. Matthew Vaughn did a really good job directing the action scenes. I've been liking him as a director in the past with Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class, and this might be my favorite he's done. To a very fun action scene that takes place at a pub. And also, let's talk about that church scene, because oh my god, it is just amazing. The energy, the brutality, the stunt work, the long takes, and also the guitar solo of Leonard Skinner's Freebird. That was the cherry on top of awesomeness in that scene. It's got a top-notch cast with Colin Firth, who's very funny, does a great job with the stunt work, and also heard he did 80% of his own stunts. With his first action movie, that's awesome. Samuel Jackson is such a hilarious villain. This was also my introduction to Taron Egerton, and I would continue to like him throughout the years, particularly him playing Elton John in Rocketman, to which he was fantastic in. Kingsman has amazing action, good comedy, and also a good arc for the main character, Eggsy. Even though I was pretty disappointed in the sequel, The Golden Circle, and I'm curious about the prequel coming out in February, The Kingsman, starring Ralph Fiennes. Hopefully that'll be a fun time, but nevertheless, Kingsman is a total blast. At number 7 is a movie I'm upset bombed at the box office and only got 2 Oscar nominations, because this is a really freaking great movie, and that is Steve Jobs. Aaron Sorkin's screenplay for this movie is fantastic. Just how he wasn't nominated for an adapted screenplay Oscar, I just don't understand at all. Like his dialogue in The Social Network, it has very captivating dialogue that gets you glued to every scene. Danny Boyle does a great job directing this movie, and my favorite film of his is 127 Hours, but this is pretty interchangeable with this and Slumdog Millionaire. All of this was a 3-act story, and this wasn't a typical biopic on Steve Jobs, and they did something different. Each taking place in 1984, 1988, and 1998 before different product launches for Apple. On top of all that, Michael Fassbender is phenomenal as Steve Jobs. He may not look the part, but when I first saw the film, and I first saw Michael Fassbender as Steve Jobs, I said that is Steve Jobs, just right there. He sold me instantly. From the mannerisms, posture, the arrogance of Steve Jobs, and also the lovable attitude, Michael Fassbender absolutely killed it, and this might be my favorite Michael Fassbender performance. And Kate Winslet also gives a fantastic performance as well, and I wish she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. And Seth Rogen is also great as Steve Wozniak, and I like seeing Seth Rogen play against type and not the typical laid-back stoner guy. He was pretty interesting. It was very well edited, I love the screenplay, amazing performances. Definitely check out Steve Jobs if you haven't. It's a really good film that just deserved better at the box office and at the Oscars. At number 6 is one of the most gorgeous yet brutal films I've ever seen, The Revenant. Leonardo DiCaprio is absolutely incredible in this movie. And this was the film that finally won Leonardo DiCaprio his long overdue Oscar, just so close for Wolf of Wall Street, but 2 years later, he finally won it for this movie. Regardless if it was overdue, on its own, it's still a fantastic performance. The physicality, the emotion of the role, what he went through to make this movie, it really paid off. Alejandro G. Iñárritu is a master behind the camera, and he definitely deserved his second Best Director win, back-to-back win with this and Birdman. The long takes used in this film that just gets you glued to the screen, and the breathtaking cinematography in this movie by Emanuel Lubezki, who also did a cinematography for Gravity and Birdman. The natural lighting used in this film, from fire, shadows, and smoke. Any shot with the locations used and the scenery in this film is just freaking gorgeous. The mix of both practical and CGI effects worked pretty well. There are just so many brutal scenes in this movie that had my jaw dropped. An opening attack of the film, that was just a great start to the film. The bear attack scene, that is one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen. Just long take, now realistic it felt. Oh my god. And the final fight scene between Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, who also gives an excellent performance, that is one of the most brutal fight scenes I've ever seen. The anticipation in that scene and the tension, my hands were just gripping watching that scene. Even if it is a slow film, The Revenant is absolutely amazing. At number 5 is an iconic franchise that started in the 70s that made a comeback in 2015 in a big way. Star Wars The Force Awakens. Even though I was disappointed with how the sequel trilogy went without a plan, Last Jedi I still really like, but I don't love that movie as much as I used to. And The Rise of Skywalker, I liked it as first, but when I watched that movie again, it went down. Oh, it was a massive disappointment, and I just did not like the decisions they made in that movie, and it just did not do it for me. Regardless of how I felt about the sequel trilogy, do I love The Force Awakens on its own? Yes. This movie brought back the fun to Star Wars, all thanks to J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams did a great job directing, and he was the perfect choice to start off a Star Wars trilogy. A beautifully shot film, the fast-paced energy put into this film, an absolutely fantastic mix of practical effects and CGI effects that worked pretty well too. And that was definitely a refreshing change of pace, since I felt like the prequel trilogy got a little CGI heavy. I love the mix of old and new characters. I love seeing Harrison Ford back as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher, rest in peace, as Princess Leia, and Mark Hamill, even though he was briefly at the end, as Luke Skywalker. Just seeing all them back in a Star Wars movie just brought a smile to my face. And the new characters, I love Rey. This was a good introduction to her. And I love that they humanized the Stormtrooper with Finn, and I thought John Boyega did a great job in this movie. I love Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. He was such a fun character. And Adam Driver as Kylo Ren is a great villain. Just how menacing he is, and you know where he's coming from. Every scene with Kylo Ren, I loved, and he was easily my favorite part of the sequel trilogy. I am aware that people have criticized this movie for being too similar to A New Hope. Honestly, I don't mind that this movie used familiar story elements to A New Hope. It did use them, but I felt like they used them in a way to make this story its own and entertaining. The Force Awakens was the most fun I've had in movies in 2015. Just brought a smile to my face. I still love this movie to this day, and one of my favorite Star Wars films. At number 4 is one of my favorite sci-fi films of the decade, and that's The Martian. This is easily Ridley Scott's best film in a long time. So happy to see him make a great movie. What I particularly loved about The Martian was this movie had a good sense of humor to it. It does have its dramatic moments which worked well, but for the most part, this movie remained optimistic, like our main character. And speaking of that, what carries this movie is Matt Damon in the lead. And my favorite performance of his is Good Will Hunting, but this is pretty close. His likability, his optimism, how funny he is, and you just want to root for him throughout this movie. You want him to get off Mars and be rescued. And Ridley Scott does a great job directing this movie, with top-notch production design, making this movie feel like Mars, even though it wasn't shot on Mars. That would be impossible. But it all looked real in every scene. It didn't look fake to me. I was like, I completely bought this as Mars. And also making an engaging and fun story of how they're going to rescue Mark Watney. Like, how are they going to do that? How is he going to get off Mars? And this movie came out 2 years after another sci-fi survival film, Gravity, and honestly, I think I might like this more than Gravity. The Martian is definitely Ridley Scott's best film in the 2010s, and one of my favorite Matt Damon performances. At number 3 is another iconic franchise that started in the 1970s that decided to come back in 2015 in a big way. Creed. Before first watching the trailer for this movie, I thought, do we really need another Rocky movie? It's been so long since Rocky Balboa. Sure, this is necessary. With a good director like Ryan Coogler, talented actors, a good story, absolutely. This was a great story of Adonis Creed trying to make a name for himself and not try to be known as Apollo Creed's son, and being trained by Rocky Balboa. And later in the film, he would learn to accept the Creed name while making a name for himself. The two main performances, Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone, are fantastic. First with Michael B. Jordan. I liked him in Chronicle. He was amazing in Fruitvale Station. This shows how really good of an actor Michael B. Jordan is. And I definitely think he's one of the most talented young actors we have working today. He really gives a lot to this role. The emotion, the boxing scenes, he just nailed it. And he should have been nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor. And this was the role he definitely needed after the disaster of Fan Four Stick. Ugh. Glad he moved on from that. Glad he was in Black Panther, also directed by Ryan Coogler, and was great as well. But Sylvester Stallone, when later in Bridge of Spies, I hinted at who was my pick for Best Supporting Actor of 2015, Stallone. He should have won the Oscar, just coming back to Rocky Balboa and putting so much emotion in his performance, getting a different version of Rocky Balboa that works well for the story. It was so great. And this is the best performance Sylvester Stallone has given since the first movie that made him an iconic star. The boxing scenes in this movie are amazing. Particularly one boxing scene that is all done in this one long take. I'm just amazed how well they pulled that off. Definitely felt real. It was both intense, got me glued to the screen. Just like, this shot is still going. This is awesome. And I felt like Ryan Coogler should have been nominated for Best Director. He did a really great job bringing the Rocky franchise back and tell an interesting story at the same time. Creed has heart, emotion, and excitement. I absolutely loved it. And also watch Creed 2, a great sequel as well. And now we're getting into the top 2, and these two I really struggled with. I think both of these two are masterpieces. I did reviews of both of these movies recently and are just struggling. It was like maybe this and this, just maybe this is number 1, this is number 2, but I made up my mind. My pick for my second favorite film of 2015 is Inside Out. This was Pixar's best film since Toy Story 3. Between Toy Story 3 and Inside Out, I got a little worried since they made some meh, decent, good but not great films, and was curious about Inside Out. After watching it, I felt super satisfied. The phenomenal animation with the colors, the background, and the unique world building in this movie too. Just love seeing this world building, how they control Riley, the world outside of headquarters, and where Joy, Sadness, and Bing Bong go to. It's just so creative. A wonderful group of main characters that I absolutely loved, and I want to see more of them in the future. I love Joy, Sadness, Anger, Disgust, and Fear. And I like that they didn't make Sadness an antagonist, more of a misunderstood character. And Joy actually has an arc and actually learns the importance of Sadness. And I thought that was a pretty satisfying arc for her. And Anger, Fear, and Disgust are really funny as well. I love them. And what I love the most about Inside Out is its themes of it's okay to be sad and happy at the same time. They didn't just play it safe with happiness. And in the scene that just gave me those Pixar feels, where Riley cries about how much she misses Minnesota, that scene really got me, and just Pixar told those themes brilliantly. And another thing I liked about Inside Out is this movie didn't need a villain. I felt like the conflict was just enough, what the characters are going through and trying to make Riley happy again, and just throwing in a villain would honestly make it unnecessary and would ruin the story, so I'm glad they did it. Inside Out is funny, it's emotional, gorgeous animation, creative world building, and also a great musical score composed by Michael Giacchino, one of his best scores for a Pixar movie. And I can't wait for Pete Docter's new Pixar movie, Soul, which is going to be streaming on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. Very excited to watch that movie. I hope he's 4 for 4, and with the rave reviews I've been hearing, I just want to watch Soul. I'm hoping it's another great film for Pete Docter. And with the Pixar films that haven't gotten a sequel yet, this should definitely get a sequel. I want to see more of these characters. I want to see what they could do with the world building to possibly expand on it. I want to see what they could happen with Riley, what could happen to her when she grows up. There are so many possibilities for a sequel. I just hope we get a sequel someday. And Inside Out is definitely one of my top 10 favorite Pixar movies. Just absolutely adored it. And at number 1, the best film of 2015 is a movie I did a 5-year review on this movie. So happy I did. Mad Max Fury Road. And to say this right now, Mad Max Fury Road, it's the action movie of the decade. Mission Impossible Fallout would be close, but this is definitely a landmark for action movies of the 2010s. George Miller returned to the Mad Max franchise, 3 movies he directed with Mel Gibson, and came back with a new Mad Max in the lead in the most humongous way imaginable. With a fantastic mix of practical effects from the vehicles, the stunt work is just jaw-dropping, some of the best practical effects I've ever seen, and the CGI effects work pretty well too. From the sandstorm, Furiosa's missing arm, that worked pretty well too and were great. And the absolutely riveting to the max, no pun intended, action sequences that are just incredible. Sandstorm sequence, the brothers in arms sequence, the music in that scene just gets me pumped up. The great performances from both Tom Hardy, who did a great job replacing Mel Gibson as Max, and also Charlize Theron, one of my favorite female action heroes of all time. Furiosa is awesome. I wish Charlize Theron was nominated for Best Actress. Amazing musical score, fast-paced editing, amazing sound design. I am so happy that this movie got both a Best Director nomination for George Miller and a Best Picture nomination, winning 6 Oscars and getting 10 nominations. Just yes. This is everything an action movie should be, and Mad Max Fury Road is the best film of 2015. And those are my picks for the best films of 2015. And first, I would like to hear from you guys. What did you think of 2015 overall as a year for movies? Good year, meh year, bad year? Let me know below. And also, I would like to hear your favorite movies of 2015. Top 5? Top 10? Let me know below. And also make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new here. It really means a lot. I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.